the Zoldyck family arc. Some love it, some hate it. Most are indifferent and have forgotten about it by the time the Greed Island and Chimera Ant arcs roll around, as the hype of those two arcs far overshadow the rather, by Hunter x Hunter standards at least, mundane plot of the briefest to date arcs in Hunter x Hunter. However, what many may not realize is that it represents one of the most pivotal moments for the character of Killua, with the most important being the very promise Killua made to Silva, his assassin daddy. When I saw that scene for the first time, it felt really out of place to me. I immediately assumed, as many of you surely did, that there was some ulterior motive to Silva's pact. I was at first focused on the pact itself, thinking that it was some sort of ruse or ability. Since Nen was still to be properly introduced, I had no reference point, so I just thought it was some ancient assassin super stealthy technique passed down the Zoldyck family for generations. It was not until my second watch that I focused more on the words and the actual promise Killua made to Silva, as by that time I knew what would happen later on in the series. Never betray your friends, a weird sentiment coming from a professional assassin, to say the least. What does this mean? Does Silva really want Killua to keep that promise, despite his friends being the primary obstacle to Silva's desire for Killua to succeed him as the head of the family? Well, yes and no. But mostly no. Give me a couple of minutes here. First, let's go over the character of Silva Zoldyck real quick. He isn't just a 6-foot-tall, swole, badass murder machine with hair that would kill, literally, but he is also the head of the Zoldyck family and Killua's dad. I think these two somewhat conflicting identities are at the core of his character, making him a much more complex character than one might initially assume, especially when taking into account his very brief appearance in the actual show. This conflict is what more than likely prompted him to initiate the promise with Killua. You see, Silva was definitely aware of the needle placed within Killua's head by Lumi. The needle that initiated a flight response anytime Killua assessed he was getting in over his head. No pun intended. This was to make sure that Killua doesn't get into anything too dangerous, as he is the protege of the family. He was to abandon everything and retreat instantly. What might we gather from this? On first thought, you might think Silva's plan was to manipulate Killua by making him make a promise he knew he could not keep. What would that accomplish? Well, it would make so that Killua would feel so ashamed and hate himself for abandoning his friends that he would turn back and take his proper place as the next Zoldyck heir. Simple enough. Now, the scene that made me question this was the scene in the Chimera Ant arc, where Silva, after patting Chitu on the head, came to pick up Zeno, with Zeno then informing him that he thought Killua had removed Illumi's needle. And what was Silva's reaction to this? It was, the most neutral possible reaction a person can have. No anger, no disappointment, no worry. Just a, It was this, paired with his initial reaction to when Killua leaves Kukura Mountain, I probably butchered that, to go with Gon and the others, that made me change my perception of Silva. You know, that scene where he strikes that insanely ominous smirk, all the while telling Kikyo, Killua will come back one day, because he is my son after all. You know, except in a much deeper and cooler voice, but... I'm talking about that little tidbit. At first, I just interpreted that as the evil, self-serving laugh of someone with nefarious intentions. But now that I look back on it, I interpret it more as a laugh of a proud father and a worried family head. After all, the man is a professional assassin who grew up isolated on a mountain, so much so that most people think his family are nothing but a myth. I doubt his social skills and emotional expression are very well developed. You see, if you take into account both of his primary identities in regards to Killua, that of the father and that of the head, you paint a different picture of his even more nuanced plan. From the previously mentioned quote, we can infer that he does in fact care about Killua very much, and that actually no matter what happens, he'll benefit in one way or another. You see, if Killua doesn't overcome the influence of the needle and ends up breaking the promise made with Silva, his guilt will make him come back home. With this, the issue of Killua escaping his duties will be solved and a bright future for the family is assured. Silva's duty as the head of the family is fulfilled. However, if Killua did in fact overcome the influence of the needle, that would mean that he had become incredibly capable, both mentally and physically. As a result, his path forwards would be uncertain, but his potential for growth, both as a person and as a fighter, would reach even greater heights. If this did indeed happen, as it has, this would be where Silva's line comes into full view. He will come back because he is my son. Silva believes in Killua, at least the fatherly part of him does. He believes that Killua will one day come back to fulfill his duties stronger and more capable than anyone could have hoped for. A risky gamble, as that would leave Killua's fate uncertain, but a gamble with a huge potential payoff. This, in my opinion, not only completely explains his rather neutral reaction at the prospect that Killua might have removed the needle, but also his future interactions and the huge amount of trust he places in Killua later on in the series during the Nanika plotline of the chairman election arc. Something that took me by surprise the first time I saw it, and that I believed was out of character for the scheming, cautious, cold-blooded character that is Silva Zoldyck. And that's pretty much my take, guys. I might have overanalyzed it a little bit, but that's half the fun. This is a shortened version actually, because the initial one got a little bit out of hand, because I tend to ramble a lot. Yeah, so hope you enjoyed it. Leave any feedback in the comments if you have any, and I'll see you in the next one.